not like I'm not going to go see it in the theater. I went with Natalie, as we said, on opening night. I guess the problem that I had, and this is where my Hunger Games fandom is sort of rearing its head, I guess, is I just felt like I watched that trailer again on the big screen for 2.5 minutes, and I just was thinking there is so much that happens in the Hunger Games, and I feel like I could describe Breaking Dawn Part 1, in 3 sentences for, what's the whole story. I mean, maybe is the Hunger Games better, do you think? Or maybe it's not a fair question to ask you, because I don't want to.
Well, I just want to chime in for a second. I honestly think it's pointless to even compare them, and that seems to be what the public and the media has really latched onto lately. But you can't compare them. They are so completely different. The Hunger Games isn't even in the fantasy genre. It's more leaning towards just like sci-fi and drama and stuff like that. The only thing that the only similarity they share really is that they are young adult series with really passionate fan bases. I think to compare them is just to sort of dig yourself into a hole or put yourself in a corner. I'm not sure what the correct expression is, but yeah, I just think you can't compare them. I'm not a Twilight fan, but I totally respect people who do love it because I know that they have their reasons for loving it. But yeah, my stance is, you can't compare apples and oranges, I guess you would say.
And I completely agree with that because the material is so very, very different, even though it does center about the choices of these young women in the context of the narrative. Katniss's decision, Bella's decision, you could say that, maybe these books are about decisions that change the course of the context of the plot and the story and the world that these characters exist in. But, trying to compare the two and saying, well, there's so much going on, it's a completely different story. It's a completely different pacing to the written material that you're going to have in, as far as where you are. When you look at the Hunger Games, it's the very beginning, so it is going to be very rapidly paced because that's the nature of that. And Twilight is written at a very different pace and a very different perspective. So I really think that trying to line them up side by side and compare them, there's no true congruency between them. I guess that's the best way to say it.
And I know we're deeply offending Kim Denny Ryder's husband, Todd, who, as we mentioned before, is one of the biggest Twilight
He's sitting in the corner. He's sitting in the corner crying right now, Adam. He's so hurt.
I'm just kidding. No, look, I mean, I think a lot of people have been trying to distance the Hunger Games from Twilight, sometimes in a way that's not the nicest, but essentially to say, this whole love triangle thing, that is not the Hunger Games. Maybe you're all right. Maybe everyone needs to kind of take a step back and say, these are different stories completely, and they focus on different aspects, and you should not go in looking for the same thing in each movie. And as I said, I've been supporting Summit. I went to see all 4 movies so far. So they got their tickets. So does anyone have, I know this is a hot button issue. I know there's got to be someone on the line here who's got something to say. Maybe one of our new parody people who did the Twilight parody. Do you have any thoughts on comparing the two stories, Harvard Lampooners, if you're still there?
I'm still here. Aaron, are you still here?
I am still here.
Yeah.
We're still on the couch. So
you did these 2 parodies. What do you think about? Is it fair to compare them? And just kind of general thoughts on, let's hear an Ivy League Harvard-esh debate go on here.
I think superficially, you can compare things like the love triangle and things like that, but no, they're such different books. I mean, I guess I'm not a huge. This is John. I'm not a huge fan of Twilight, and no, I really did feel like there was just so much less sort of substance in throughout all of the Twilight series, and yeah, I guess that's my stance. Aaron, what do you think?
I feel similarly. I think I had more fun parodying a book that I respected a little bit more. I also think that the two main characters of the two books or the two trilogies are essentially the antithesis of each other in some ways. And I mean, that's why obviously I like Katniss much more. And also, to be perfectly candid, I just have problems with the way Stephenie Meyer writes, whereas Suzanne Collins, I didn't have the same grievances.
Yeah, there's actually, I'm going to pull in a celebrity quote here from Elizabeth Banks, who everyone knows is playing Effie Trinket. This is a quote from the People magazine feature in which she basically said just what you guys said, that Bella is sort of the antithesis of Katniss. Katniss is the anti-Bella. She said, Katniss is not pining for anybody. This isn't about a first kiss. This is life and death. And I think that really sort of sums up the differences between the two. You know, Twilight is very much focused only on a love story.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of I feel a little bit trepidation about the movie. I just don't want them to. Oh, sorry. I just hope that the movies aren't somehow turned into, don't sort of get away from the fact that in the book Katniss is very sort of trying to extract herself from this love triangle stuff. But then the media and everybody else is trying to force it on her.
I wonder if you do quote our friend Tiffany, or Twiffity, as you may know her, from Victor's Village, who always has great, insightful comments. She said it really is pointless to compare them. That's why we don't like it when the media and anyone else does. So that's a good point. Maybe the hatred is towards the media who's trying to link them together. And the other quote, which I was just cracking up from being very insightful, is from our very own Shylah, who just tweeted this. Shylah, do you want me to read your tweet, or do you want to read it yourself on the air?
Read it. You can read it, Adam.
Okay. So, and I think this really sums up how I feel, and I hope no one gets offended. Besides, get mad at Shylah. She's the one who tweeted it, not me. So she said, Twilight is fun. It's like eating Oreos. You have them as a treat, but if that's all you eat, you're in for some problems.
Amazing analogy.
I think to me that's part of the problem is where I feel like the Hunger Games, in my opinion, and I'm not telling anyone else to feel this way, bring so much more depth to the table. And, in turn, Harry Potter, to me, just was a much greater, more complicated. I mean, I just felt that Twilight could have done more. The first movie, the first book, had a real promise, and we never really leave Forks, I feel like, in the way that we could. I would have liked to really expand to a much greater sense of, the way Rowling introduces, you get the Quidditch World Cup and these other countries and the Ministry of Magic and, the Hallows and the Horcruxes and all of these things. I don't know, I just felt Twilight came up a little bit short, in my opinion. However, as you can hear, some very intelligent people, Lee, who's one of the most sagacious Hunger Games fans you'll ever hear, loves it and has great points. So my advice is don't listen to me or anyone else. Form your own opinion. But speaking of opinions, we do want to get an opinion from our friend Jenn, who's from Hunger Games Confessions, who, as Savanna has pointed out to me online, is can always be counted on for a great insight when it comes to fandom-related and inter-fandom stuff. So, Jenn, if you're still there, I'm going to give you the floor for a minute to give your final analysis to close out the show.
So I guess I think Savanna said something about, Twilight and the Hunger Games both being pinned to be marketable for the young adult fiction section, which is true. And I always get a lot of heat from my followers on Tumblr talking about how they absolutely hate that the Hunger Games and Twilight are always pinned together. And actually recently on E! Online, they had this article that basically pinned some characters together, such as like Katniss versus Bella, Peter versus Edward, and they were saying that Edward was a little bit stronger emotionally and Peter was the sensitive baker. And to me, honestly, I think it's all just more like marketing ploys and stuff, and I think fans should really take it as kind of not an honor, but kind of something to be proud of, that, you know, we're already being like put up on this pedestal next to Twilight that has done very well box office-wise, you know, and at the end of the day, we want the Hunger Games to do just as well as Twilight, and we know, you know, as fans that they don't correlate at all storyline-wise to be similar. They're just in the similar book category, and that's what it is at the end of the day.